there's enough research and enough data to suggest how PVC and other chemicals found in those products are damaging to the human body, I wasn't gonna go lobby at the White House. I'm like, I'm just gonna make something else.
So oftentimes, people tell us to start a business based on a problem that we have ourselves. And so with that, I'm interested in how you got the idea for, your natural, eco-friendly, braiding product. Talk about that.
So like most other Black women, I've been wearing braids most of my life. And one particular summer, while I was working my first job post grad, wearing braids back to back, I was having really bad reactions and scalp irritation from plastic synthetic hair, and just had time on my hands to sort of look into it, and was inspired to develop some hair extensions that would work for me in terms of comfort and safety, as well as like not as harmful on the environment as the plastic was having.
Is this something that you knew you always wanted to start a business, or you saw, hey, I got an issue here and I don't see a product in the marketplace, so let me figure it out? Or you just always, which lane did you take, I guess? Was it?
I always knew that I was entrepreneurial, although I didn't know what that word meant. I didn't know entrepreneurship was a career until I went to college. And so I studied business management and got a minor in entrepreneurship. And then I went to USC and got a master's in social entrepreneurship. So I definitely knew I wanted to start a business one day, but I couldn't have predicted that it would be this business. I feel like the hardest business to start as a first time founder, with so many uncertainties. There's so much unknown about this space, and the innovation that was needed in this industry was not going to be cheap. And so I just kind of jumped in full force from there.
As somebody who's done like a lot of construction, I've heard the term PVC often. And what I've read about you is you've discovered like a lot of hair braiding, products that are on the market have PVC in it. And so talk about like, what's in the market today and why those things are issues for us.
So from what I understand and what I've been able to find in my research, a majority, I don't know what percent, but let's say 9 times out of 10, your hair extensions, your plastic hair extensions are going to be made out of PVC. There are some brands that use PET, but for the most part, it's PVC. And I just couldn't believe, based on what I was learning about the way PVC was used in other applications, that it was okay to use it in a product that sits on our scalps. I was just kind of blown away that not enough people were either aware or calling attention to the potential risks that we were assuming as consumers wearing these products on our scalps. The other half of the market is going to be human hair, which are also coated in certain chemicals. I don't know what exactly, but the story behind human hair is like it's a lot more secretive.
Yeah.
Because of where it's being sourced, how it's being sourced, the practices, how it gets its way to the States. So, some people have an aversion to, wearing another human being's hair on their head. And so I just recognized that there were these two opposite ends of the spectrum in the hair extension industry that both had sort of nasty histories. And I wanted to know, was there a lane for something completely different that wasn't made out of neither plastic or human hair?
Yeah, so often we think of, our scalp itching or irritation as just a byproduct of having natural hair. But what you're saying is like, this is not normal. This is not normal though.
Yeah.
So talk more about that.
I knew it wasn't normal, and I knew that most people probably in their gut knew like this wasn't normal, but it was sort of like an expectation that if I get braids, and it's just something that you have to do. Almost like the beauty is pain phrase that has been debunked in other areas, but it's sort of an expectation. Like if I get these braids, I know my scalp's gonna be irritated, and I'm gonna be patting. I know I'm gonna be like oiling it down, doing an apple cider vinegar rinse, just doing the whole nine. And I wasn't willing to do any of that, one. And I was also just really curious. Like, I wanted to know more of the why than to how am I going to like continue to wear my braids and go the extra mile to do that. Like, I wasn't down to do that. I wanted to know what's the reason that my scalp is itching and what can I do about it so that it doesn't happen again, ever again for anyone.
Yeah, I was doing research for this conversation. I was looking at some other studies that was done around products that are in your category, not your products, but products in your category. And so many synthetic chemicals are using these things that in many cases are banned in other countries, right? And so things that we allow for whatever reasons in the United States to be sold and to be put into people's hair. And one of the things that I'm really interested in is what is it about products that are not plant based that we may not even be aware are damaging. Like, what are they doing to, like, what are the products doing to us in our skin? Because I mean, before you answer, I was talking to my dermatologist several years ago, and she said this statement that stuck with me ever since. Like, our skin is our largest organ. You know, a lot of people don't think of it that way, but the things that you put on it
Mm-hmm.
ultimately get in it. And so we think
End up
of,
in your body. Yep.
exactly, like we think of, in our nose or in our mouth or et cetera, like these are gateways, but your skin is a gateway also.
And that's what sort of like that's what scared me once. So I all these years ago, this was in 20. Started working on this in 2019. I think I ordered this report in 2020. I sent two brands of plastic hair to a lab. I was living in North Carolina at the time. I sent it to a lab in North Carolina for them to tell me like, what is the makeup of these materials, and the results scared me because it got me thinking about if I'm having a topical reaction, itchiness, redness, bumps. That is one my body's my immune system warning
Yeah.
me that something is wrong. But I was terrified about what my body wasn't telling me right in that moment about what was possibly being absorbed from my skin into my body, how it's impacting my organs, how it's impacting my immune system overall, and what sort of connections that the chemicals found in these products have to certain cancers and illnesses like breast cancer. And so that just became like really eye opening to me that not only could I not allow myself to continue to wear these products, but I have to warn other people
Yeah.
that there are questions that need to be answered, in the same way that studies have been done about permanent hair dyes, about relaxers. The one about relaxers I think has been done a couple of times, but it gained a lot of traction this last go around like a couple months ago. And so that same level of discovery and research needs to be done with plastic hair extensions so that we can know definitively if I'm gonna continue to use these products, at least I can make an informed decision about the risks that I'm assuming as a consumer.
Yeah, and so just personally, I've been going through this awakening of the things that I eat, right? And so moving closer and closer towards vegetarianism. Maybe not vegan, is really really hard to do that, but
Vegan is a huge
yeah, it's
step.
a huge, humongous step. But making just more conscious decisions about the things that I put in my body, and so many people around me are having this same awakening. And so I want what does Sierra think about when she thinks about the why our government allows certain products to be sold to us when so many other countries don't allow these things to be sold. Like I think about, I was reading this story a couple of days ago. It's like there's certain things that we do to our flour and et cetera that gives us gluten reactions. Like in other countries, like they don't have these issues, but there are certain ways we process things that they have to process differently in other countries because they don't allow that. Like when just you, I'm not obviously not asking you to give a government answer or something well researched, but like what do you think about when you think about why do they allow this stuff to happen to us or to be sold to us?
Yeah, I think there's a level of um, disappointment, but also not surprise because when you think about the priorities of our government and um, the people who make decisions about our everyday lives, it's not always with the best intentions or with, the citizens of this country, like with our interests really in at the top of their minds. It has more to do with sometimes it's very performative, and then
Yeah.
other times it is racism attached to everything. I mean, I feel like the list could go on and on
Yeah.
as to why. this country does things
Financial
in a more
interests. Yeah.
lackluster, yeah, financial interests. People are lobbying against certain things. Who can really say?
Yeah.
But I think there's a level of detachment that the government sometimes exhibits when it comes to products. I'll say products specifically because go on and on about all the other layers. But with products, if it's not if it is not the first thing on the docket, then I don't know if it will ever become that, like ever reach that level of importance because it's just not important. And with a product like hair extensions, where it's not used by the majority of people in this country, it's used by a certain percentage of people in this country, Black people, I don't see a world in which it rises to the ranks from a governmental level to really become a priority. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe that will happen one day. But I think when I recognize that, you know, there's enough research and enough data to suggest how PVC and other chemicals found in those products are damaging to the human body, I wasn't gonna go lobby
Yeah.
at the White House. I'm like, I'm just gonna make something
Yeah.
else.
Yeah. You can build your own table. I love that. We've talked about, the harmful impacts these things can have on our body and our personal selves. Can you talk a little bit about the environmental impacts of the positive environmental impacts your products would have versus products that may be on the market today?
Yeah, the key difference is our products are made of biodegradable ingredients and they'll break down in the right environment, whereas the plastics, or even some element of the human hair is technically compostable, but I don't know what goes into that production process in detail. So I'll talk about the plastics specifically. Those products are not biodegradable, which means after they're worn one time, because those products are also cheap in single-use plastics, they end up in the trash, which ultimately ends up in landfills, and they are living there to this day.
Yeah.
So it was important for me as an entrepreneur and a creator in this space that I didn't contribute to that waste in the same way. I needed something that would either be fully recyclable or I needed something that was going to be biodegradable. And so those are sort of my parameters on the environmental impact that I needed to stay within.
Yeah. Let's talk about the natural technology of your product. I've read a little bit about, there's like banana fibers. Like talk about what your products are made of, and then I want to talk a little bit about the challenges in getting those things to market.
So the core ingredient is banana fiber. It's extracted from the stem of the tree, which bananas is like the number top three crops in the
Yeah,
world
yeah.
in terms of production and consumption. So there's no shortage of this material, which was an important piece of the puzzle. The other thing is the stems are. This was so fun for me to learn when I was doing this research, but the way bananas grow, they talk about them like families. It's like the mom, the grandma, the baby, and these trees. Only one of them bears fruit at a time.
Mm.
So once one is done bearing fruit, the farmers have to cut down the stem of, let's say, the grandmother because she's done for the mom to be able to
Wow, wow.
produce fruit. And so that stem goes to either waste by rot or it's mulched and goes back into to feed the soil. So there was an unused value in the stems to give it a second life, really give it a first life,
Yeah.
but yeah, give it some purpose and give
These byproducts. Yeah, yeah.
value. And that was, I just thought that was so cool and super interesting and further feeds into my idea of what circularity can look like in the most unusual circumstances.
100%. And so when you think about the challenges that you've had to go through in order to get these things to market, I think about manufacturing, sourcing. A lot of these, I'm sure, or probably all of them, are not coming from the United States. You have to source internationally. What are some of the challenges you've had to overcome? And let's talk about those.
Well, in the beginning, when I was researching where and how hair extensions were made, I mean, there were no plants or factories in the States. So I couldn't just walk in and say, how do y'all do this?
Yeah,
Show me how.
yeah.
So that was a challenge. It was also during the pandemic. This was
Oh
like,
wow,
I quit my job. I think my last day was February 25th, 2020.
wow, wow.
And the pandemic started like March 3rd. So Those was crazy times for sure. So I also couldn't just hop on a plane and go like just pop up places that I might have been more willing to do
Yeah,
pre-pandemic.
yeah,
So I spent a lot of time on my townhouse just on WhatsApp, connecting with people on the internet, trying to understand like where are hair extensions made, how are they made, how can I do it, what do I need, who do I need, and it was very, very, very hard. It's kind of funny to think about now because those aren't the things that keep me up at night anymore. But there were many sleepless nights and stress trying to just get this thing up and running. So today we make all our products out of St. Louis, Missouri. I'm from Kansas City, but we're based in St. Louis, and we have a manufacturing site with 7 employees who make hair day in and day out, or at least a part of the production by management, which was not not heard of
yeah.
before I started this here. But it was important to me to have oversight and influence over how these products were made, and so I wanted to do it like literally close to home.
Oh, I love that. So many black hair care and black wellness product stories, startup stories that I've heard over the years have recognized investor challenges. Because so often the investors don't look like us, and you do have some investors that do look like us, but there's some that don't also. But they struggle to raise capital. So many of us, people, black women, specifically trying to solve black wellness and black hair care issues, have a challenge raising capital. How did you overcome those challenges to find some success?
Storytelling is always key and where you start. And I also raised, I can't remember anymore, but between 150 and 200,000 something dollars in non-dilutive capital, and I launched with that. I used a little bit of, well, I spread that money out as far as I could,
Yeah,
is what
yeah,
I should
yeah.
say,
That's what we
to
do.
get to market, to yeah,
Yeah, that's
to
what we
have
do.
a proof of concept, to prove that one, this was a product that people were interested in, because I really had no data to support whether or not people would be interested in plant-based hair extensions. Um, and so after launching and seeing the reception and the excitement from our people, and people who didn't look like us, people who don't wear hair extensions, but they were just, excited about what we were doing. Then I decided to raise because I understood just how powerful what we were doing was and how important it was. And that if I, what's the saying? If I wanted to go go
Oh
fast,
yeah.
like
If you
I
want to go
needed help.
fast, go
But
alone.
yeah,
If you want to go far, go together.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah,
100%.
yeah. And so that was kind of like, and it took a lot of coaching for me to understand what my options were and what was best for me and the company. But ultimately, I knew that I had something special and I wanted to share it with as many people as possible. And so I would need help to do that.
Yeah, I didn't hear much about how you started, how did the MVP, like when you talk about a minimum viable product, before you go to investors and you got this, idea, did you just pitch an idea or did you've already sold some things in the market? Like, how did you get those first prototypes or beta, products that you could sell or show somebody so that they can see what you've come up with?
So most of 2020, I was just pitching the idea, refining um, the business model, the solution would look like. I was very clear on what the problem was, but that the ultimate solution of what Break Better is today, I didn't have all those details early
Mm-hmm.
on, and so I wasn't comfortable raising venture capital at that stage. I also didn't know a lot about it, if I'm being honest. I had gone through two collegiate programs about entrepreneurship, but I still didn't feel like I had a firm understanding of what it's like to put a pitch deck together
Yeah.
and go raise $6 million from VCs with just an idea. Like that was foreign to me. And so I stuck to what I knew, which was applying for grants. I put myself through undergrad on grants and most of grad school on grants. So I knew how to do that.
Yeah.
And so that's what I did. I applied for pitch competitions. There was tons of grants circulating at the time because of George Floyd and other racial justice issues.
That was a moment.
And I
It
just,
was a moment.
you know, it was. I applied for everything that we were eligible for, racked up a nice chunk of change, and like I said, I spread it out as far as I could to get to that MVP. And then it was worth me, entertaining these calls. And something else that is super interesting is for our pre-seed round, most of that investor interest was inbound. So I also didn't have a good understanding of what it was like to go out and pitch um, with this idea. They were coming to me saying, "Hey, what you're doing is super interesting. I'd love to learn more." And so it kind of gave me an opportunity to choose who I wanted to talk to and who I didn't. It also gave me space to like get better and learn how to like hold my own in these spaces that I really wasn't that familiar with.
And so if I'm hearing you correctly, and clarify if I'm misunderstanding, but it sounds like to me before that MVP, you were just focused on understanding the problem at its root and then letting the solution evolve over time. Is that correct?
I would say so. Yeah, I let the solution come to fruition. I let my story speak for itself, and build community around what I knew the problem to be, or what I thought the problem was amongst other Black women who wore braids. And I led with that. I needed a product that worked for me at the very beginning. That's what I was focused on. I need something that I can wear.
Yeah.
So I launched something that I could wear, and then I told other people, "You can wear it too."
Yeah, yeah. So let's talk about that. So you have this problem that you've identified. Irritation of the skin because of these chemicals that you're recognizing are being put in or placed on the products that are on the market, particularly the plastic hair extensions that are on the market. And then you start to go down this rabbit hole of what else is out there. Tell me about how when you decided to ask yourself that question, or when you asked yourself that question, how did it get from that question of what else is out there to bananas potentially being a solution or part of the solution? What started to be revealed to you?
So I started my search with, if not plastic, then what?
Mm-hmm.
And so I looked in other spaces to find out what other type of materials were being used to replace plastics in other applications in kitchens, in homes, in beauty. And so I just was reading up on literature that gave me an idea of what type of natural materials even exist. And I ordered whatever I could find on the internet so I could feel it and smell it and see it, and get an idea of whether or not it was enough like hair, or could I find somebody who could help me make it hair like. And there are pockets of research online that says, yeah, this is a good, it's good in this application. It could be good in other applications. And I really just wanted to see it for myself. And so I just tried a bunch of different stuff.
Yeah. And then where did the bananas come from? Like where was that? Did you read something, or like where did you find that? Okay, there's something here.
Pretty sure YouTube.
Wow.
I'm pretty sure I found some videos of some different fibers being used on YouTube. And so then I had to figure out, like, well, how do I get my hands on some of these materials?
Love that. Love that. You initially had to be sold to raise money. And you touched on this a little bit ago. Like you were initially like, nah, I'm good. And, you didn't really feel like it was, at least at the onset, the lane for you. And you told AfroTech previously that, one of your would-be investors was like, these are all the reasons you should raise money. And they gave you a list of things, right? And, I think you went on to say, as I was listening to all my ambitions, and that helped me realize that I can disrupt an industry with limited capital. I don't think I considered exactly what that was, what I was doing, and that capital could take me a lot further. What were some of those things that you realized that you couldn't do if you didn't raise money?
Okay, I'm gonna answer that two ways. One was like in the moment, the pain points I was experiencing, and then the long term
Yeah.
vision. One, I couldn't hire anybody, so I was making most of the hair, and so I couldn't I literally couldn't do fundraising calls, podcasts, press, make product, ship product.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I didn't have that foresight in the beginning because I just wanted to make hair for myself. I just wanted to see, what could this be? And I just wasn't focused on like the scale in the early days. So that was like baseline. Like it was Matt Conwell who told me this. He said you can't work in and on your business at the same
Yeah.
time. And it might as well have been a mic drop moment. I was
Yeah.
like, oh my gosh, you're right.
Yeah.
I can't do that.
Shout out to Mac. Yeah.
So that was one. And the other thing was, I could very clearly see that with the interest that was growing, that we had something and that people were gonna pay us good money to eliminate this problem for them. So how was I gonna get to all these people all over the country and all over the world that were coming at me asking for a product? Um, I could not do it alone. I
Yeah.
couldn't do it with the limited capital that I had, and I couldn't make a high quality product without money under my belt either. I needed that, not just for like the formulation itself, but the production, the operation. Like I wasn't focused on those things really early on because I just wanted to prove that it could be done, and I proved that. And then I went out and got some more money.
Yeah. And so I think about, when I've talked to so many entrepreneurs like yourself who knew they kind of wanted to be an entrepreneur, had an idea that they wanted to work for themselves, maybe didn't really have an understanding or definition or of the vocabulary of entrepreneurship in their vocabulary, but knew they wanted to work for themselves, but was on a different path. And what we don't always see as obvious is the lifestyle of an entrepreneur. It's long days. It can be long days. It can be very stressful. And I've read where you talked about, all founders struggle with some mental health challenges. And I'm interested in how you manage stress in your life, being somebody who was on a particular path, entrepreneurship evolved in your life. And, it can be consuming. You talked about having to do all the things and having to pitch to investors while also trying to do the podcast and et cetera. It's a lot of work, and it can be, like you're carrying the weight of the world so often, especially when you're working now with somebody else's money too. So how do you manage the stresses of entrepreneurship in your life?
It definitely has evolved. In uh, in 2021, I had a nervous breakdown like post launch, and I've been seeing a therapist since I quit my job in 2020. So I immediately jumped into therapy. I'd been thinking about it, and then I quit my job, and then something else happened that I won't go into, and I was like, I'm about to try therapy.
Yeah.
So I was seeing a therapist. I had that tool in my toolbox. Then I had a nervous breakdown in 2021, and so I just sort of had this realization that I couldn't be my best self at work if I wasn't my best self up here. And I had to reprioritize what Rebundle meant to me, and how I would be an entrepreneur and a person
Yeah.
with a life outside of my company. So I've employed a few different techniques, many that have to do with like how much work I allow myself to do in a given time frame, how much space I create, what boundaries I set between me and my company, what my support system looks like, what good support and bad support looks like, what sacrifices I am and am not willing to make, and just being like real with myself about how much I can handle and listening to my body. And so it's definitely evolved because there was a period where I wasn't listening to my body, and then my body was like, yeah, no, we're going to stop here. And
Yeah.
if I wanted to, continue on my journey, I had to respect what my body needed from me, which was sanity.
Yeah. How do you protect that? How do you put boundaries around that when, the culture of startup lifestyle is go, go, go?
Well, I try not to put too much pressure on my team. I try to respect the boundaries that they set, which in turn means that, if I need something done from somebody at 10 p.m. and they can't get it to me, then I probably shouldn't be working on it either. So that's one thing. I take advantage of scheduling emails and messages at later times. I spend time with my friends and my family. I travel. I'm kind of doing an unconventional living situation right now, but I'm about tired of that. So I'm about to, move to New York and take myself seriously. So,
Yeah,
it's just
yeah.
different thing. There's always a season, and there will be periods where we do have to go, go, go. This is a go, go, go period for me and my team. And I told them that yesterday. I said, we'll probably work harder we have this quarter than we ever have. And at least I'm upfront about that and can think about, how we prioritize mental health while also while they help me make my dream a reality.
Yeah, yeah. Well, so speaking of your team, you know, when you were building your team, specifically the key people on your team, the people who are, you know, those other leaders like you, closer to yourself, when you were interviewing them and when you're identifying people who you're to fill these key roles, what are some of the most important questions you felt they needed to answer correctly in those interviews to make sure that they knew that you knew they were the right ones to join you on this road?
Yeah, I had learned early on that people having an affinity towards startup environments or experience working in them is like table stakes. Like more often than not, it doesn't work out with people who are looking for a certain level of structure and progression in some ways, in like in their career, like how quickly they get promotions, bonuses, etc. And just knowing how to be flexible and nimble, like that's something I always have to look for. And you can ask it in a few ways, but you also can just glean from the way they answer certain questions about like how quickly they'll respond to something, how cool they are, how chill they are, how organized they are. I don't know. It's a feeling.
Mm.
Sometimes, and I didn't get this a lot early on. Like I've gotten a lot better at it, is what I should say. Um, it really has to do with a feeling, oftentimes, of whether or not someone is a good fit. If I like them, if I like their energy, if they have the skills. Like skill is obviously very important, table stakes as well. But do they have the will? Like, um, are they hungry themselves? Are they like what gets them excited? How like independent, how much of an independent thinker are they? How willing are they gonna be to like just figure stuff out, because that's usually what we're all doing anyways. um so yeah, that I can't think of any specific questions, but it has a lot to do with the feeling. I'm definitely reading your resume to see what other type of environments you've been in, and I'm listening to the way you answer questions, not necessarily like whether or not you answer with, a very the answer that maybe been a right one, but like what was your process to get into that? Are you Do I feel like you are not the right fit because you are going to be too rigid? Are you going to be pressing me because you don't have enough time or enough resources, like, which are all very real things, but are you going to press me about it? Because, I'm feeling it too.
100%. And I want to talk a little bit more about sustainability, and it's a big topic in our social discourse these days, and particularly to what you're doing for our community with making products that are healthier for us. And there was another quote I read where you were in a different interview and you said there would be no demand without us. And part of the reason that so many other companies, many using internationally sourced products and ingredients, they don't necessarily always have our best interest at heart. And you said, why don't we have any ownership, and why is there not an experience created around us in our products? And so in your mind, what is the importance of Black entrepreneurs, Black founders like yourself, Black developers of solutions that are better for us to, why is it important for them to scale? I know so many Black women and Black men who are building healthcare products, health and wellness products, whether it be from shea butters to colognes and etc. And they're doing it better. There's not as many chemicals or no chemicals at all. What is the importance for them if you were to stand in front of a room of them and you were to say it's important for you to get out of just your kitchen doing this, but it's important for you to grow a business around this? What would you say to them?
Well, I guess my first question would be, is that what they want?
Mm.
Do they want to grow highly scalable, a fast growth company, or do they want a lifestyle business? Because honestly, there's nothing wrong with one or the other. It's really about who's running it and what is their vision for what they want to build. Because if I'm being honest, I was sort of on the other end of the spectrum. I didn't really know how big what we were doing could be. I didn't have the foresight to like lay down those foundational steps first and then, become a high growth venture. So if that's what you want, if that's what the entrepreneur wants, then I think we owe it to ourselves and our community to try and put our all behind it, to like make it as big as we can, because if there are products on the market that you're not willing to wear yourself, like you wouldn't wear it yourself, but you have made something that
Yeah.
you know is better for you and could be better for, the person next to you, we should be supporting each other in that way. Like we should want better for ourselves and our community from whether it's health or environmental standpoint.
Love that. So I got Ciara. It's fantastic. Really good job.
Thank you.